The woman who destroyed my dream is now lying on a hospital bed, waiting for me to save her life. I stand in the glass-paneled hallway of St. Mary's General Hospital, the rhythmic beeping of monitors echoing faintly through the sterile air. The faint scent of disinfectant mixes with the soft hum of machines, familiar, grounding. It's the sound of my world now, one built from broken bones and rebuilt dreams. On my office door, the polished nameplate gleams under the light. Dr. Evelyn Carter, Medical Director. For years, I imagined this moment, the day my name would mean something more than a forgotten file in a medical school's rejection drawer. I thought it would feel like victory, like justice wrapped in white linen. Instead, as I stand there in my fitted white coat, it feels heavy, like the past has followed me into the one place I thought I'd finally escaped it. A nurse knocks softly and steps in. Her voice is calm but hesitant. "Dr. Carter, your next patient has arrived. She's asking for the director personally." I look up from the chart I'm reviewing. Did she say her name? The nurse checks her clipboard. "Yes, ma'am, Lauren Carter." The sound of it stops me cold. Lauren, my sister, my ghost from 10 years ago. The woman who made sure I never walked into my medical school interview, who laughed behind closed doors when my dream collapsed. I blink once, slowly, forcing my hands to remain steady. My pen clatters onto the desk. The nurse looks at me, concerned. "Doctor, should I tell her you're unavailable?" I take a deep breath, my heartbeat steady but strong in my chest. I've faced life or death moments on operating tables, but nothing prepared me for this, the collision of who I was and who I became. "No," I say, my voice calm, almost surgical in its precision. "Tell her—" There's a pause long enough for my reflection in the window to look like someone else entirely, someone older, colder, carved by pain and purpose. "Tell her Dr. Smith will see her now." The nurse nods and leaves, unaware of the storm that name carries, Dr. Smith, the identity I built from the ashes of the life Lauren burned. As the door closes, I sit down, my mind unwillingly drifting back to that day, the one that split my life in two. The laughter, the bruises, the way she smiled at my pain. I had buried it deep under years of study, surgeries, and sleepless nights in trauma wards. But hearing her name again is like reopening a wound I thought had long healed. The intercom buzzes softly. "Dr. Smith, patient Lauren Carter is ready for consultation in room 204. Room 204. My hands tighten on the desk edge. The irony is sharp. Her life, once so polished, now dependent on the sister she tried to destroy. I glance around my office. Degrees line the wall. Stanford, Oxford, Johns Hopkins. Symbols of every sleepless night, every tear, every inch of determination that pushed me forward when no one believed I'd rise again. And beneath them, framed in subtle defiance, is a yellowed rejection letter from Stanford Medical School, dated the same year Lauren betrayed me. The memory of that moment slices through me. I can still feel the rain that day, the hospital lights flickering over my bruised face as I sat in silence. I remember her leaning in with false sympathy. "You've always been too clumsy for surgery, Evie," she had whispered, as if my pain were a punchline. And yet, here I am, steady hands, unshakable focus, holding lives together every single day. I rise, smoothing my coat. My reflection meets my gaze once more. The timid, heartbroken girl who left home a decade ago is gone. What remains is someone honed by suffering, someone who learned to stitch her own wounds when no one else would. As I walk toward room 204, nurses nod respectfully. They see a leader, a healer. None of them know that just beyond those double doors waits the person who once nearly ended me. The hallway feels longer with every step. The air gets heavier. For 10 years, I avoided this moment, never thinking it would find me inside my own hospital, under fluorescent lights and the faint hum of ventilators. When I reach the door, I stop. Through the small glass window, I glimpse her. A frail woman in a hospital gown, tubes in her arm, eyes closed, unaware that the doctor about to walk in is the sister she betrayed. I inhale deeply. The ache in my chest isn't hate anymore. It's something quieter, deeper. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in calmly, wearing a white coat. I push the door open. "Good afternoon," I say, my voice steady. "I'm Dr. Smith. I'll be taking care of you today." She opens her eyes, confusion flickering across her face. For a second, recognition almost dawns, then slips away. And as I pull her chart from the stand, one thought settles in my mind like a heartbeat. The woman who destroyed my dream is now lying on a hospital bed, waiting for me to save her life. Before the storm, when everything still felt possible. 10 years earlier, before Dr. Smith or any hospital title existed, I was simply Evelyn Carter, a 22-year-old student with big dreams and calloused hands from holding both textbooks and part-time jobs. Our house was small, tucked on the edge of Riverside, California, with peeling white paint and a backyard where the wind carried the scent of our mother's lavender plants. It wasn't much, but to me it was the center of everything I loved. Inside that house lived 3 people: my mother Diane, my older sister Lauren, and me. My father had died when I was 15, leaving behind nothing but old medical books and a promise he once made while tucking me in. "You've got the heart of a doctor, Evie. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." I held on to those words like oxygen. Lauren, on the other hand, held on to something else: control. She was 5 years older, polished and charismatic, the kind of woman who turned heads at family gatherings and board meetings alike. She worked in pharmaceutical sales and loved the attention that came with it. The sleek car, the heels that clicked like confidence, the compliments from everyone who mistook her charm for kindness. We couldn't have been more different. I was quiet, methodical, and endlessly curious. While she spent weekends at wine tastings or spa retreats, I spent mine volunteering at the local clinic, memorizing anatomy flashcards until dawn. Still, I tried to keep peace between us. I believed she loved me in her own complicated way. The morning routines at our house were chaotic but familiar. Mom would stand at the stove flipping pancakes while Lauren breezed in, perfectly dressed, spraying perfume and answering work calls. "You're going to be late again," Mom would scold gently. "Relax, Mom. I sell medicine, not perform surgery," Lauren would reply with a laugh that always carried a hint of superiority. And then there was me, rushing out the door, clutching my notes, heart full of hope for the Stanford medical interview I'd been preparing for my entire life. That winter, everything felt within reach. I had spent months perfecting my portfolio, volunteering at hospitals, shadowing surgeons, and practicing interview questions late into the night. My professors had written glowing recommendations. Even my mother, usually cautious with praise, smiled proudly when she saw the acceptance letter for the interview. "Your father would be so proud," she said one night, gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "This is your time, Evelyn." "I just hope I don't mess it up," I whispered. "You won't. You've worked too hard." Lauren stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. When Mom left the room, she stepped closer. "Stanford, huh?" she said, her tone carefully light but her eyes cold. "That's a big deal." "It is," I said, smiling. "It's all I've ever wanted." "You always did like being the golden girl." I laughed awkwardly, not realizing it wasn't a joke. That night, as I packed my portfolio, letters, transcripts, certificates, I heard Lauren on the phone in the hallway. Her voice was low, almost conspiratorial. "No, she's leaving early tomorrow morning. Yeah, she'll be walking alone to the station." At the time, I didn't think much of it. Lauren had friends everywhere. She was always planning dinners, meetings, or parties. I couldn't have imagined that conversation would decide the next decade of my life. The night before the interview, I couldn't sleep. My heart raced with excitement and nerves. I imagined myself in a white coat, imagined saving lives, imagined Mom crying tears of pride in a graduation hall filled with applause. Lauren knocked on my door holding a cup of chamomile tea. "Can't sleep?" she asked sweetly. "Too nervous." Admitted. "You'll be fine," she said, handing me the cup. "Just remember, not everyone gets what they want. Life's unpredictable." I smiled weakly, not catching the sharp edge beneath her words. The next morning, Mom hugged me tight before I left. "Go make your mark, sweetheart." I walked out into the cool air, clutching my folder to my chest. The street was quiet, the sun just breaking over the rooftops. I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt, like the universe was holding its breath for me. What I didn't know was that just a few blocks away, 2 men were waiting. That was the last time I saw my home as it was. The last time I saw my mother's hopeful smile before it turned into heartbreak. The last time I believed that family meant safety. But at that moment, walking down that quiet street with my dreams neatly folded under my arm, I had no idea that my own sister had already decided I would never reach that interview room. If I had looked back that morning, maybe I would have seen her car parked half a block away. Maybe I would have seen the faint glint of satisfaction in her eyes. But I didn't. I kept walking toward my future, unaware that someone I loved was about to steal it from me. The betrayal that changed everything. The morning of my interview felt like the beginning of a new life. The sky over Riverside was streaked with pale gold, the kind of sunrise that made even the cracked sidewalks glow. I remember smiling to myself as I walked toward the bus stop, clutching my leather folder tight against my chest. Inside it were my dreams. Recommendation letters, grades, volunteer certificates, proof that every sleepless night had been worth it. Mom had hugged me at the door, whispering, "You've got this, sweetheart. You were born for it." Her words still echoed in my ears as I walked down the quiet street. My heart was racing, but it wasn't fear. It was hope. I was finally going to step into the future my father had always wanted for me. That's when I noticed the black sedan idling at the corner. The windows were tinted, engine humming softly. I didn't think much of it. Riverside was full of early commuters. I adjusted my coat and kept walking. Then it happened. 2 men stepped out of the car, both wearing dark hoodies. They didn't say a word at first, just started walking toward me. I froze for a second, unsure whether to run or speak. "Excuse me, do you—" The first punch landed before I could finish. My folder flew from my hands, papers scattering like leaves. I stumbled backward, pain exploding across my face. The second man grabbed my arm and twisted it sharply. I screamed as something cracked near my shoulder. "Please, I don't have any money," I cried, my voice breaking. One of them chuckled. "This isn't about money, sweetheart, just a message." Another kick, another blow to my ribs. The world blurred into colors and pain. My knees hit the pavement. I tasted blood, metallic and bitter. I could barely see through the tears, but I caught a glimpse of something. A gold bracelet on one man's wrist, glinting in the sun. My sister had one just like it. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. I wanted to. They left me lying on the ground, gasping, shivering. I don't know how long I stayed there before a neighbor found me and called an ambulance. The paramedics lifted me gently, their voices distant like echoes through water. Dislocated shoulder. Possible rib fracture. Head trauma. I wanted to tell them about my interview, that I had to get there, that they couldn't let me miss it, but the words wouldn't come. I slipped into unconsciousness as the sirens wailed. And when I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My right arm was strapped in a sling, my face bruised, my body aching with every breath. The clock on the wall read 3:47 p.m. Hours past my interview time. The realization hit me like another blow. My dream, gone. The door opened, and there she was. Lauren. Her eyes widened theatrically. "Oh my God, Evie, what happened?" I tried to smile through the swelling. They just came out of nowhere. I didn't even see them. She came closer, pressing a hand to her chest in mock sympathy. "You poor thing. You've always been too clumsy for surgery anyway." The words were meant to sound playful, but I caught it. That flicker of satisfaction in her eyes, like she was proud of something she'd never admit. Mom rushed in next, breathless, holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. "My baby, thank God you're alive." Lauren comforted her, saying all the right things. "It's okay, Mom. She just needs rest. Maybe this is life's way of saying she should take it easy." I wanted to scream, to accuse her, to tear off that perfect mask. But I had no proof, no witnesses, just a gut feeling and the echo of that gold bracelet under the morning light. Days turned into weeks. I recovered slowly, physically at least. But inside, something cracked that wouldn't heal. The world that once felt bright now felt poisoned. Everywhere I went, people whispered. Some said I was unlucky. Others said I was reckless. At a family dinner a few weeks later, I overheard Lauren laughing with her friends in the kitchen. Can you imagine if she actually became a surgeon? She can't even cross the street without getting injured. They all laughed. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening. That's when it sank in. She wanted this. She wanted me to fail, to vanish, to stop reminding her of everything she wasn't. That night, I packed my bag. Mom begged me not to leave. "You can apply again next year, honey." "No, Mom, not here, not anymore." I didn't tell her why. Some truths are too cruel for mothers to carry. Before dawn, I boarded a bus heading north with nothing but a backpack, a few $100s, and the burning vow that this wouldn't be the end of me. I left behind my name, my past, and the sister who called herself family but had acted like my executioner. I promised myself one thing. I'd come back, but not as Evelyn Carter, the girl who was beaten and broken. I'd come back as someone she'd never be able to hurt again, from broken to unstoppable. When I left Riverside, I was 22, bruised, terrified, and utterly directionless. The world felt like it had closed its doors on me. Every bump on the bus ride north sent a jolt of pain through my ribs and shoulder, but none of it compared to the ache inside. Betrayal cuts deeper than bone. I had no plan, only a need to disappear. I changed buses twice, then rented a small room above a diner in a quiet Oregon town under a false last name, Smith. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe. Nobody there knew the story of Evelyn Carter, the girl who lost everything. At first, survival became my only goal. I took a job cleaning tables, saving every tip, refusing to let self-pity drown me. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, the echoes of my sister's laughter looping in my mind, too clumsy for surgery. Those words burned like a brand. One evening, as I served coffee to a table of EMTs who'd just come off a shift, I caught myself watching the way they talked about patience. The adrenaline, the purpose, the quiet pride. Something inside me stirred, that old pull toward medicine. It wasn't gone. It had just been buried under pain. That night, I pulled out a crumpled medical anatomy notebook from my suitcase, the only thing I'd kept from my old life. I traced the faded ink of my notes, whispering to myself, "You still belong in this world, Evelyn. You just have to fight your way back." The next morning, I enrolled in a community college nursing assistant program. I used my tips to pay tuition, took night shifts at the diner, and studied between customers. It was exhausting. There were nights I cried quietly over textbooks, but the small victories kept me going. Each passing exam felt like reclaiming a fragment of the life my sister tried to take from me. Within a year, I earned my certified nursing assistant license. The first day I walked into a hospital wearing scrubs, I almost cried. The antiseptic smell, the echo of footsteps on tile floors, the hum of machines, all of it felt like home again. But I wasn't done. I wanted more. I wanted to stand in an operating room to feel the pulse of a beating heart beneath steady hands. During my second year, I met Dr. Alan Foster, a trauma surgeon visiting from London. He noticed my focus and calm under pressure. "You've got the mind of a surgeon," he said one evening after I assisted during a minor procedure. I smiled weakly. I used to think so, then stop thinking and start proving it. His words reignited something fierce in me. With his recommendation, I applied to a medical school in London. It was my second chance. And this time, I refused to let anyone steal it. I sold what little I owned, took out student loans, and left the U.S. with a single suitcase and an iron will. In London, life was brutally hard. I lived in a small shared apartment, studying 14 hours a day, working night shifts at hospitals, surviving on tea and instant noodles. But with each cadaver lab, each diagnosis, each sleepless rotation, I felt stronger. Every scar, every sleepless night became proof of what I was capable of. Whenever doubt crept in, I'd whisper to myself in the mirror, "You didn't ruin me, Lauren. You forged me." Years passed. I graduated top of my class and completed my residency in trauma surgery. I became known for my steady hands, my focus under chaos, and my ability to make decisions that saved lives. But inside, I carried silence, not revenge, not hatred, just the determination to build a life beyond her shadow. When I was 32, an opportunity opened back home. St. Mary's General Hospital was looking for a new medical director. My mentors pushed me to apply. "You're ready," they said. I wasn't sure. Returning meant facing ghosts. But deep down, I knew. Healing isn't complete until you walk back through the fire. When the acceptance email came, I sat frozen for a full minute. 10 years after the alley, 10 years after the betrayal, I was going home. Not as Evelyn the victim, but as Dr. Evelyn Smith, the surgeon, the leader, the woman her sister swore would never succeed. Before boarding the flight, I walked to the Thames River and tossed my old sling, the one that once held my broken shoulder, into the water. Watching it drift away, I whispered, "You tried to break my hands, Lauren, but all you did was teach me what they're capable of." When my plane touched down in California, I looked out at the skyline and felt it for the first time. Peace. Not because I'd beaten her, but because I'd finally become everything she told me I couldn't be. Little did I know, fate was waiting with one final test. The past wasn't finished with me yet, when karma wears a white coat. The morning started like any other. The hum of machines, the faint buzz of intercom announcements, and the steady rhythm of footsteps echoing through polished hospital corridors. I had been the medical director at St. Mary's General Hospital for only a few months, but the staff already treated me with the quiet respect reserved for people who'd earned it. My days were full. Surgeries, meetings, administrative chaos, but I loved every second. That morning, as I signed off on surgical schedules, my nurse Clara rushed in, slightly breathless. "Dr. Smith, we've got an emergency coming in. Severe internal bleeding, car accident victim. They're bringing her up to trauma now." I nodded. "Page Dr. Lewis. Prepper 2 and alert anesthesiology." "Already done," she said, handing me the chart. "Middle-aged female, 38, multiple fractures, possible spleen rupture, names..." She hesitated, reading again. "Lauren Carter." The pen in my hand froze mid-signature. My pulse quickened, but my face didn't show it. A decade of control kept my voice steady. "Repeat that." "Lauren Carter," Clara said softly. "Do you know her?" I met her eyes for a second, then looked back at the papers. "No," I lied, "but let's make sure she survives." I walked briskly toward the operating room, each step echoing like a drumbeat in my chest. The fluorescent lights flickered as I passed, casting fleeting reflections of my face on every glass surface. Lauren Carter. The name I had avoided for 10 years. The woman who stole my dream was about to depend on me for her life. When I entered OR 2, the world around me narrowed to sharp focus, the kind only surgeons understand. Nurses scurried to prepare instruments, the anesthesiologist adjusted the mask, and the smell of antiseptic filled the air. On the table lay a pale, unconscious woman, tubes and monitors surrounding her fragile frame. And there she was, Lauren. Her once flawless skin was bruised, her hair matted with blood. She looked smaller, almost vulnerable. The arrogance she once carried was gone, replaced by the fragility of someone who had finally met something bigger than her ego. Clara handed me gloves. "Ready, doctor." I nodded. My voice came out even, almost detached. "Scalpel." The operation began. Every motion was precise, practiced, automatic, yet every slice of the scalpel through torn flesh carried memories sharper than the blade itself. I remembered her laughing as I lay broken in that alley. I remembered her words. "Too clumsy for surgery." Now my hands were steady, surgical perfect. The same hands she tried to destroy. We worked for hours, sealing ruptures, repairing damage, fighting time. The line between past and present blurred until all that existed was the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. Finally, I sutured the last incision, stepped back, and said quietly, "She'll make it." The room exhaled in relief. I stripped off my gloves and walked out. My reflection in the glass door looked different, calm, strong, almost serene. Saving her hadn't felt like victory or revenge. It felt like release. Later that evening, I walked into her recovery room. She was awake, groggy but conscious, connected to IV lines and oxygen tubes. The nurse looked up as I entered. "Your doctor's here to check on you, Miss Carter." Lauren blinked slowly, her eyes still cloudy. "Doctor?" I stepped closer, my white coat crisp, ID badge clipped neatly. Dr. Evelyn Smith. "How are you feeling?" I asked. She squinted, confusion furrowing her brow. You sound familiar." I smiled faintly, though my heart was pounding. Maybe that's because you know me. Her gaze sharpened as realization dawned. The oxygen monitor beeped faster. "Evelyn," she whispered, voice cracking. "No, it can't be." I pulled down my surgical mask. "It's me, your little sister, the one who wasn't good enough for surgery." Her lips trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean for—" "Don't," I interrupted softly. "You don't need to explain. You did what you did, and I became who I was meant to be." She tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back gently. Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice breaking. I looked at her, not with anger, not with pity, but with something purer. Because I took an oath to save lives, no matter whose, even the ones who tried to ruin mine. Her face crumpled with shame. "I told everyone you were too clumsy to be a surgeon," she whispered, "and now you're the one who saved me." I didn't answer. I just looked at her. This woman who once thought power came from taking, not building. "Rest now, Lauren," I said quietly. "You're safe." As I turned to leave, the nurse whispered, "You did the right thing, doctor." I smiled faintly. The right thing isn't always the easy one. Walking down the hallway, I passed the framed mirrors that lined the walls. For the first time, I truly saw the woman reflected back. Not Evelyn, the victim, but Dr. Evelyn Smith, the surgeon who turned pain into precision, betrayal into purpose. I had spent years preparing for this day, imagining how it might feel to face her again. I thought I'd want revenge, or at least satisfaction, but all I felt was peace. Because saving her life didn't just heal her. It healed the last part of me that still carried hate, the lesson that heals deeper than revenge. 3 weeks had passed since that night in the operating room, the night I saved my sister's life. The headlines still whispered about it. Medical director performs emergency surgery on car crash victim. Patient turns out to be her estranged sister. The hospital board wanted to spin it into a PR piece about integrity and ethics, but I refused. It wasn't a story for the world. It was closure. Private, quiet, and mine. Lauren was recovering slowly in a private ward on the East Wing, where sunlight filtered through wide windows and softened the sterile brightness of the hospital. Every morning I'd check her chart without entering the room. She didn't need my presence to heal. Not physically, at least. Emotionally, I wasn't sure she ever would. Still, there was something unfinished between us. So one quiet afternoon, after my last surgery, I walked into her room. She was sitting up, thin and pale, staring out the window. When she turned, her eyes widened slightly. "You came," she said softly. Her voice had lost its sharpness. It trembled like a reflection on water. I pulled a chair beside her bed but didn't sit. "How's the pain?" "Manageable," she murmured, looking down. "They said I'll walk again with therapy. I guess I should thank you for that." Her words hung in the air, awkward and fragile. I stayed silent. "I heard the nurses talking," she continued, "about how you've changed your name, Dr. Smith." I nodded. "It's easier to build something new when people don't know what was destroyed." She flinched. "I deserved that." I didn't respond. She sighed, running a hand through her tangled hair. "You know, when I saw your face that night, I thought I was dreaming. I thought maybe God was playing some cruel joke." I met her eyes. "I thought the same thing." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The monitor beeped rhythmically beside her bed, a reminder that life, fragile and relentless, still pulsed on. Finally, she whispered, "I told everyone you were too clumsy for surgery. I told them you weren't strong enough. But when I opened my eyes and saw you in that coat, I realized you were stronger than I ever could be." Her confession should have felt satisfying, but instead it felt hollow. Because the truth was, I hadn't come to hear her guilt. I had come to forgive it. "Lauren," I said quietly, "you don't owe me anything. Not an apology, not gratitude. You made me who I am, just not in the way you intended." She blinked, tears filling her eyes. "You're really forgiving me?" I took a breath. "Forgiveness isn't about freeing you. It's about freeing me. I carried that night for too long. I'm done." Her lips trembled. She tried to smile, but it came out broken. "You always were the better one." I shook my head. No, I just learned the hard way that hate keeps you chained to the people who hurt you. When I stood to leave, she whispered one last thing. Evelyn, thank you for saving my life. I turned toward the door, my voice steady. That's what doctors do. Weeks turned into months. Lauren was discharged, and though she sent a few letters, I never replied. Not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. Our story had ended the moment I chose to save her. One evening, after a long day, I returned to my office. The sunset bled through the blinds, painting the room in gold. On my desk sat 2 framed pieces, side by side. On the left, my Stanford rejection letter, wrinkled and faded. On the right, my director's nameplate polished and new. The 2 halves of my life, failure and triumph, sharing the same space. I traced my fingers over the letter's creased edges. For years, it represented humiliation, betrayal, loss. Now it was proof of survival, proof that broken dreams don't die. They evolve. Outside, a nurse knocked gently. Dr. Smith, the board meeting's ready. Tell them I'll be there in 5, I replied. As the door closed, I looked out over the hospital floor. The place, where I had rebuilt everything. The same world my sister once said I wasn't strong enough for was now mine to lead. I smiled faintly, not the triumphant smile of victory, but the calm one that comes after a storm finally passes. In that moment, I realized something deeper than revenge or justice. Success wasn't about proving my sister wrong, it was about proving myself right, that no cruelty, no betrayal, no pain could define who I was meant to be. I turned off the light and whispered the truth I had carried through every surgery, every scar, every sleepless night. The woman who destroyed my dream became the reason I rebuilt it stronger. And when fate gave me a choice, I chose mercy. As I walked down the corridor, white coat swaying, footsteps echoing softly, the hospital lights reflected off the polished floor like a river of gold. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel haunted anymore. I felt free. And that was my story. A story not just about betrayal or pain, but about strength, grace, and rising above the people who once tried to break you. Sometimes, life brings you full circle. The same hands that once trembled in fear can one day hold power, healing, and purpose. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to let someone else's cruelty decide the rest of your life. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, remember this. You don't have to get even. You just have to get stronger. Let your success speak the loudest. Thank you so much for watching this story till the end. If it touched your heart or reminded you of your own journey, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you love emotional, real-life stories of resilience and redemption like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next powerful story. Because here, every story is a reminder that no matter how dark the past was, you can always rewrite your ending. Thank you for watching. And remember, strength isn't about revenge. It's about rising.